Believe it or not, it was a recruiter who showed up to my undergrad, and she was wonderful. Sarah Turner, I don't believe she's with the school anymore, but she was great, and she was really excited about where she worked. And up until that point, I didn't know WVSOM existed, even though it was about an hour and a half or hour 15 minutes from where I grew up. And so I said, well, this recruiter is nice. Maybe I'll check out the campus. Showed up, fell in love, and here I am. So the first visit, it was an open house. I don't remember, it had to have been in the fall. And they did a tour of the campus, the anatomy lab, and then the OMT lab. And you just kind of got a feel for the campus. So then I applied, interviewed in February. And that was probably more inviting to me. You're nervous when you're interviewing for medical school, but one of the best things that I think that they offered was the time that we had with the other students, or current students. We'd go to lunch with them. We had like an hour and a half or so just to ask questions and see what they thought of the school. And it seemed like their responses were all overwhelmingly positive, but they seemed really genuine as well. And so from that interview, we already made friends with current first years. So when I came back in the following year, I knew someone in the class ahead of me. So that was my experience with the whole admission process. And I remember they told us, oh, you'll know in like 10 days or so. So on the 10th day, I called and I'm like, hey, I haven't heard from you guys yet. And I remember being told off the record that I should be receiving some good news soon. At the time, I would have been the highest degree holder in my family. Now I'm tied with my mom because she got a doctorate as well. It was so exciting for my family because the first doctor in the family. And so I remember calling my mom. I'm like, hey, I need some money. And she's like, what do you need money for? And I'm like, well, I've got my deposit. You would have thought that everybody in the state of West Virginia knew that my mom's daughter got into medical school. I think the school attracted me to the profession. It felt like home, or it felt like being part of a family. And so from my first visit to WVSOM, it made me more curious about the osteopathic profession. So the school led me to osteopathy, not the other way around. Lewisburg is one of those towns that I always wanted to live in, but didn't realize that it was Lewisburg. It has a cute, quaint, small town feel, but there are lots of quirky little shops and things to do. So Lewisburg is one of my favorite places that I've lived. My experience at WVSOM was great. Like I said, when I stepped on the campus, it had quite the family feel. One of my best stories from from med school was December of 2009. And we had an exam, and my mom had called, and it was right at Christmas break. Like, you took your exam and then you were done for Christmas. And my mom kept calling like, hey, it's snowing, I need you to get out, come on. I said, well, Mom, I want to take a nap, I want to clean my apartment, and then I'll head home. I got stuck. And I could not get back to my apartment. And so I spent the weekend with Jennifer and Danny Seams and their little boy all weekend. I'm in their house, and they've danced at my wedding. So they have become part of family. And that's just the overall feel of WVSOM, and that's why I recommend it to other students. I never thought I would miss being a student, but I think medical school kind of draws those lifetime learners. So not being in class and not worrying about the next big thing is probably what I miss about school the most. Well, there was such an emphasis on primary care, and I was the student who came in who had no idea what she wanted to do after medical school. And my exposure to so many different fields during rotations definitely helped me to firmly grasp that I wanted to do primary care. And like I said, the school has such an emphasis on primary care, it was kind of a perfect fit. I think the tenets of osteopathy kind of are just ingrained in who we are based on our training. So instead of, going in with some patient with some ailment, we look at the whole person. And I'm not sure you would get that philosophy in an allopathic school. believe it or not, I was one of those students who wasn't quite sure about osteopathy before I started school. Some of the techniques are a little more difficult when you're 5'2" and small hands, but I do the best I can with most of the patients that I see. I probably see probably 5 to 10 patients a week for OMT, which, had you asked me as a first year, I would have said no, this is not, but it has just become part of my practice, and it really has made such a difference in my patients' quality of life that I can't just not. Well, where I practice is a very underserved area, so we have very limited resources. A lot of times for specialty scans and even something as simple as physical therapy, sometimes our patients have to drive almost an hour. So osteopathy has helped because the people who can't make it to physical therapy or can't go and get the MRI, we've been able to increase their quality of life just with OMT. I was a class of 200, and I still keep in contact with most of my, you make your own little family in your class, but like I said before, it's not just the classmates, like the staff, like everyone is just so invested in making us good doctors. And so even everyone from the janitor to the president has been on our side and kind of rooting us through the whole time that we were there. So it felt like you had your big extended family just wanting you to do well.